The alien ship floated in silence, far away from any star, far away from any planet. The endless black stretched in every direction, and inside the ship, the crew sat with tired eyes. Machines hummed weakly, lights flickered on and off, and every sound reminded them that the end was near. They had been drifting for weeks, maybe months. No one really knew anymore. Captain Serac, an old alien with silver marks on his forehead, stared at the control panel. His hands were shaking, his eyes dry from sleepless nights. He had tried everything, every signal, every beacon, but no one had answered. Not a single ship had passed by, not a single station had replied. The galaxy was wide and cruel, and it seemed they had been forgotten. Food was almost gone, water filters were failing, oxygen was dropping every hour. The youngest crew members whispered in the dark, asking if they would die here. Serac told them to stay strong, but even his voice carried no hope. In his heart, he wondered if anyone would ever find their bodies. The crew gathered in the central hall, their faces pale, skin dry, eyes empty. Some prayed, some cried quietly, and some stared into nothing, waiting for the end. They had once dreamed of exploring new stars, of meeting new worlds. Now they only dreamed of a single breath of fresh air. Serac walked slowly to the main window. Beyond it, space looked endless, cruel and cold. The stars blinked like distant fires, but none of them cared. He felt his chest heavy, not just with lack of air but with failure. He had promised his crew safety, yet here they were, drifting helpless in a dying ship. "Send another signal," Serac ordered weakly. The communication officer obeyed, sending out another desperate cry into the void. The sound of the beacon echoed through the halls, then silence returned. Only the faint hum of engines, barely alive, kept them company. The ship shuddered suddenly, a small vibration passing through the walls. The crew jumped. Some thought it was the engine finally dying. Others thought it was an asteroid. Serac held his breath, checking the panels. The screen blinked. Something was out there, a faint signal, different from anything they had seen before. He leaned closer, his old eyes widened. It was not an asteroid, not debris. It was a ship. The radar showed a small moving dot, growing closer. The crew gasped, their weak bodies filled with sudden energy. Could it be real? Could someone have finally heard them? But fear followed quickly. What if it was pirates? What if it was scavengers waiting to take what little they had left? Many whispered in panic. Some begged Serac to turn off the beacon, to stay hidden. But it was too late. Whoever was out there already knew they existed. The small dot grew brighter on the screen. A strange ship, unlike any design the aliens knew, approached slowly, carefully. It did not look powerful. It did not look like a warship, but it carried a strange light, soft yet strong. Serac felt his heart beat faster. His crew gathered behind him, silent, watching. The ship moved closer and closer, until even through the window they could see its shape, sleek, small, but alive with energy. Then the speakers crackled. For the first time in months, they heard a voice. It was rough, deep, and strange. The words were not clear, but the tone carried something powerful, determination. The crew stared in shock. Serac's lips trembled. He recognized the sound. He had studied it long ago. A language from a small, ignored world. A world the galaxy had laughed at. A species no one respected. "Humans," Serac whispered. The word rolled through the silent hall like thunder. The crew looked at each other, some afraid, some confused, some desperate for hope. The humans had arrived. For the first time in weeks, Serac allowed himself to believe they might not die after all. The alien ship was silent, every ear waiting for the strange human voice to speak again. The sound had been broken, full of static, but it was enough to make their hearts beat faster. After weeks of silence, even noise felt like a miracle. Captain Serac stood tall, though his legs trembled. He leaned over the console, trying to catch every fragment of the signal. The crew stared at him, desperate for answers. "Who are they?" one whispered. "What do they want?" Another asked. None dared say the darkest thought. What if the humans came not to save, but to finish them? The ship groaned under its own weight. A sudden spark burst from a panel, and the oxygen alarm screamed again. The air was dropping fast. Serac's lungs burned with every breath. He knew they did not have much time left. Even if the humans had good intentions, the crew might not survive long enough to see it. In the medical bay, young Officer Rylan coughed violently, her skin pale and lips cracked. She tried to comfort the younger cadets, telling them a rescue was near. Her words were kind, but her body told the truth. They were dying, one breath at a time. Back in the command hall, the human ship grew larger in the window. Its lights blinked steadily, almost like a heartbeat. It was strange. Small compared to the massive alien vessel, yet full of energy. The humans were coming closer, and every second stretched like a lifetime. "Captain, should we open a channel?" the communication officer asked. His voice shook, his fingers hovering above the console. Serac nodded slowly. His throat was dry, but he forced the words out. "Try. Speak with them." The officer sent the message, his voice breaking. "This is the vessel Carousel, drifting, helpless, oxygen failing. Please, if you hear us, help." His words echoed through the speakers, then disappeared into static. The crew held their breath, every eye fixed on the screen. For a long moment, there was nothing. Only the hum of dying machines. Only the faint wheeze of lungs struggling for air. Then, the humans answered. The voice was clearer this time, though still heavy with static. "We hear you. Hold on. We are coming." The words were strange, not perfect in alien tongue, but the meaning was sharp as light. The humans were coming. A sound broke in the hall. It was a sob, raw and uncontrolled. One of the crew had fallen to their knees, crying loudly. Others began to cry too, the heavy silence breaking into waves of emotion. For the first time since this nightmare began, they felt hope. Serac gripped the console with shaking hands. His heart pounded. He had lived long enough to see wars, betrayals, and countless lies in the galaxy. But he had never heard a voice like this. It carried no threat, no greed, only urgency, only will, yet doubt still haunted him. "What if it is a trick?" he whispered to himself. "What if they come to steal the ship, take our bodies, strip us like scavengers?" The thought clawed at him, but another voice rose inside him, the memory of the human's tone. It had not sounded like pirates. It had sounded like people who refused to give up. The oxygen alarm rang again, louder, sharper. The crew gasped as the level dropped into red warning. They could not wait much longer. Every second was a knife cutting into their lungs. Through the window, the human ship adjusted its course, turning smoothly toward the alien vessel. Lights flashed along its hull, signals of docking. The humans were not running away. They were coming in closer. Serac turned to his crew. His voice was rough, but strong. "Hold on, just a little longer," he said. "Help is here." His words echoed, giving the dying crew a spark of strength. And in that moment, as the alien ship trembled under failing systems and the humans prepared to board, every soul on the carousel understood one truth. This was their last breath, but it did not have to be their final one. The crew of the carousel huddled together in silence. Their chests rose and fell with shallow breaths, eyes wide and fixed on the docking bay. The strange human ship was now locked to their vessel, metal arms holding them together. For weeks the aliens had prayed for rescue, yet now that help had arrived, fear twisted inside their hearts. The docking lights blinked red, then green. The heavy door groaned as pressure systems adjusted. A hiss of air escaped into the corridor. The crew held their breath. Some expected pirates with guns, others imagined scavengers with cruel smiles. No one dared to hope too much. Captain Serac stood at the front. His knees ached, his lungs burned, but he forced his body to appear strong. His eyes stayed locked on the door. His hand rested on the railing, trembling just enough for those closest to notice. Behind him, the crew whispered, "What if they are killers? What if they want our ship?" The door began to open. A pale mist filled the corridor, and for a moment nothing moved. Then shadows appeared in the mist, shapes of figures stepping forward. The crew gasped. Some staggered backward, clutching each other. The humans entered slowly, 4 of them, dressed in strange suits of fabric and metal. Lights blinked softly on their helmets. Their movements were steady, not rushed. They carried tools in their hands, tools that looked sharp enough to be weapons. The aliens stared, unsure whether to bow in gratitude or run in terror. One of the humans raised a hand, palm open, a gesture of peace. The sound of their voice came next, muffled through the helmet, but strong. "We come to help." The words were not perfect in alien tongue, but clear enough. The aliens froze. Their minds struggled to accept it. For so long they had been told humans were weak, small, not important in the galaxy. Yet here they stood, walking calmly into a dying ship, offering help, not conquest. Serac's throat tightened. He stepped forward. "Why?" he asked in a broken voice. "Why would you come?" His question carried more than curiosity. It carried suspicion, fear, and desperate hope. The human closest to him tilted their head, then spoke again. "Because you called." The answer was simple, almost too simple, but in that moment, it shook the entire hall. The crew murmured in disbelief. Some felt tears sting their eyes. Could it really be so? Could humans be the only ones who had listened to their cries? The humans began to move, checking panels, touching broken wires, scanning oxygen systems. Their tools buzzed softly. Their hands worked quickly. Every action carried a strange determination, as if failure was not even an option. The aliens watched, afraid to speak. They had expected violence, yet these visitors worked as if the crew's lives mattered. One human even opened a small container, revealing clear water. He handed it to a young alien officer whose lips were cracked and bleeding. The officer drank, and for the first time in days, smiled weakly. Fear began to fade, replaced by confusion. The crew whispered among themselves, "Why would they risk themselves for us? What do they gain?" No answer came. Only the steady sound of humans repairing a ship not their own. Captain Serac felt his heart pound. His mind still doubted, but his eyes could not ignore the truth. These fragile-looking beings, so small compared to most galactic species, were saving them. They were turning despair into hope with nothing but hands, tools, and willpower. As more systems flickered back to life, lights glowed brighter across the hall. The oxygen alarm softened. Air flowed just a little stronger. The crew took deeper breaths. Their lungs still hurt, but they no longer felt death pressing so close. Serac closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. For the first time in weeks, the air did not taste like failure, it tasted like survival. And when he opened his eyes again, he saw the humans still working, sweat shining on their brows, determination in their faces. Unknown visitors they were, but they had brought more than help. They had brought something the galaxy had stolen from the carousel long ago, hope. The crew of the carousel stood in uneasy silence as the humans worked. Every spark from their tools echoed in the hall. Every hiss of released pressure made the aliens flinch. Though the humans had shown no sign of harm, fear still wrapped around the crew like a chain. Captain Serac kept his eyes fixed on them. His mind wrestled with two truths. 1. These strangers were repairing the ship, saving lives. 2. They were still unknown, still outsiders. Still a species no one in the galaxy trusted. He could not shake the thought that help could turn to betrayal at any moment. The youngest cadets clung to each other, whispering, "They are so small. They look fragile. How can they be so calm?" The older officers, scarred by war and loss, muttered darker thoughts. What if they poison the air? What if they are here to claim our ship? The humans seemed to sense the tension. One of them removed their helmet slowly, revealing a face pale yet warm. Their eyes were steady, their mouth curved in a soft expression the aliens had never seen before. Something between strength and kindness. The crew gasped. Some turned away, frightened to look directly. The human raised both hands, showing they held no weapon. Their voice was clearer without the helmet. "We do not harm," they said. "We help." The words were broken, accented, but carried with such certainty that they struck deeper than any perfect speech. Still, doubt filled the air. The engineer of the carousel stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Why? Why risk your lives for us? No one answers our calls, not even our allies." His tone was full of suspicion, eyes narrowed at the strangers. The human paused, then answered with a single word. "Because, Thal." That word, so small, made no sense, yet the way it was spoken, filled with stubborn will, made the aliens fall silent. It was not logic, it was something else, something they could not explain. The crew's fear did not vanish, but it shifted. Instead of trembling at the thought of attack, they trembled at the mystery of these beings. Who were they? What made them so different? Why did they act when others turned away? The oxygen meter beeped softly, its numbers rising. The repairs were working. The air thickened, not perfect but stronger. The aliens inhaled deeper, some coughing as their lungs adjusted. A few began to weep openly, relief breaking through walls of fear. One human knelt beside a fallen crew member, pressing a strange device to their chest. A soft hum followed, and the alien gasped as pain faded. For days they had suffered, and now, with one touch, healing began. The crew watched in awe, fear mixing with respect. Serac stepped closer. His hands still shook, but his voice carried weight. "You are not like others," he said slowly. "The galaxy ignores us, but you came." His eyes locked with the human leader's eyes, and for the first time, he did not see a stranger. He saw determination. The humans nodded, then turned back to their work. Their hands moved faster, sparks lighting the dark hall. Every second brought life back into the ship. Every moment pushed death further away. The crew whispered, their fear softening. The word humans passed from lip to lip, not as an insult, not as a curse, but as something new, something powerful. And though terror still lingered, though suspicion still clawed, a quiet truth grew inside the heart of the carousel. These visitors, unknown and fragile, had become more than strangers. They had become the line between life and death. The ship carousel breathed again. Faint lights glowed on the walls. Oxygen flowed through the vents, and weak engines hummed like distant thunder. The alien crew, once moments away from death, now watched in silence as the humans worked. Their hands were rough, their tools simple, yet every action carried purpose. Captain Serac could not look away. These beings were unlike anything he had seen in his long life. They were not the strongest, not the tallest, not the most advanced, yet they did what no empire, no ally, no trading fleet had done. They had answered a dying call. They had come. The humans moved like a storm, one repairing the oxygen filters, another patching broken wires, a third feeding power into the engines with strange portable cells. Each time something flickered back to life, the crew gasped. Their ship, once a tomb, was slowly waking. One human placed a small container on the table. Inside lay packets of food. Basic, rough, not the rich meals the aliens once ate, but real food, sustenance, hope. The youngest cadets stared with wide eyes, their stomachs twisting in hunger. The human pushed the packets forward with a single word: eat. At first, no one dared. Fear whispered, "What if it is poisoned? What if this is a trick?" But desperation was louder. A young alien officer tore the packet open, lifted it to his mouth, and chewed. His eyes widened. A tear rolled down his cheek. "It is real," he whispered. "It is food." The others rushed forward, hands trembling as they reached for the strange human rations. They ate quickly, crying as warmth filled their empty stomachs. For weeks they had starved. Now they tasted life again, and it had come from the hands of strangers. Serac watched, his chest heavy. The humans had not only saved their air, they had given them water and food, gifts of survival. He felt something stir inside him, something he had buried. Gratitude. One of the humans approached him directly, handing him a small flask. Serac accepted it with shaking hands. He lifted it to his lips. Cold, clean water touched his tongue. He closed his eyes. His heart pounded. He had forgotten what real water tasted like. When he lowered the flask, the human nodded. No words, no demand for payment, no arrogance, only a silent gift. Serac's throat tightened. His voice cracked. Why? Why do this? The human simply answered, "Because you needed." The crew whispered among themselves. Many had once laughed at the idea of humans, a small species from a forgotten world. But now, as their ship glowed brighter and their bodies found strength again, those whispers turned into words of awe. They saved us. They gave without asking. They are not like others. The engineers of the carousel stood beside the humans, watching their work. The simplicity shocked them. The tools were not advanced, yet they were effective. The humans did not wait for perfect solutions. They patched, fixed, forced life back into failing systems with sheer stubbornness. Bit by bit, the ship transformed. What had been drifting toward death now pointed once again toward the stars. The engines hummed, the lights steadied, the air grew breathable. Serac stood tall before his crew, his voice still weak but filled with new fire. "Look," he said, pointing to the humans. "Remember this moment. We were abandoned by the galaxy, but not by them, not by humanity." The crew bowed their heads, some in shame, some in reverence. They had judged too quickly, believed too easily in lies told by greater empires. Now their hearts knew the truth. Humanity's gift was not only food, water, and repairs. It was the gift of hope. It was the reminder that even in the darkest void, there are hands willing to reach out. And as the humans continued their work, sweat dripped and popping, breaths heavy, they did not see themselves as heroes. They saw only a ship in need, a crew to be saved. For them, helping was enough. For the aliens of the carousel, it was everything. The carousel was alive again, not whole, not perfect, but alive. The lights glowed steady, the engines whispered, and the air no longer felt like poison in their lungs. The crew walked through the corridors, touching the walls as if to make sure the miracle was real. Their eyes followed the humans with wonder, fear fading, replaced by something heavier. Hope. Hope was a strange thing. It filled their hearts but also made them fragile. They had survived the silence, the hunger, the endless waiting for death. Now they stood at the edge of life again, afraid it might vanish in an instant. Captain Serac stood in the central hall, watching the humans as they worked. Sweat rolled down their faces, their clothes dark with effort, yet not one of them stopped. Not one of them asked for reward. They moved with the same quiet fire, as if saving the aliens was not a choice, but a duty. The crew whispered around him. How can such small beings carry so much strength? They do not look powerful, yet they make the impossible real. What kind of hearts do they have? The questions filled the air, none with answers. One of the younger cadets, Rylan, approached Serac. Her voice trembled. Captain, are they like us, or something more? Serac looked at the humans, his old eyes softening. They are human, he said simply. The word carried weight, heavier than it had ever before. The humans brought more than repairs. They brought laughter back into the halls. One offered a piece of strange food to a child cadet, making a funny face until the young one giggled. Another hummed while fixing a broken pipe, the sound unfamiliar but warm. The crew, once drowned in silence, now heard life again. Yet Serac felt the weight pressing on his shoulders. Hope was dangerous. He feared what would happen when the humans left. Would the crew fall back into despair? Would the galaxy abandon them again? He knew the lesson of the stars. Help rarely came twice. Late into the artificial night, Serac found himself standing at the wide window, staring into the endless dark. Beside him stood the human leader, helmet under one arm, eyes tired but calm. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Serac broke the silence. Why? The human turned their head slightly. Why what? Why risk yourselves for us? You do not know us. You gain nothing. Serac's voice cracked. The weight of gratitude and doubt pressed into every word. The humans smiled faintly, a tired smile but a true one. Because we could not let you die. They spoke as if it was the simplest thing in the universe. Serac's heart trembled. He had lived his life in a galaxy where every action had a cost, every gift carried chains. Yet here were humans, giving freely, as if compassion itself was their power. The crew gathered the next morning in the hall, their eyes no longer dull, their bodies no longer bent in despair. They looked to their captain, waiting. Serac spoke slowly, his voice steady. We live because of them, he said, pointing toward the humans. Do not forget, when the galaxy turned its back, it was humanity who lifted us. The words spread through the ship like fire. The aliens bowed their heads, some wept openly, others clenched their fists, swearing silently never to forget. The humans worked quietly in the background, unaware of the storm of gratitude rising around them. To them, it was not glory, it was simply the right thing to do. But for the crew of the carousel, it was a lesson, a truth heavy as the stars themselves. Humanity was small, yet they carried the weight of hope. The carousel no longer drifted helpless in the dark. Its engines hummed with steady power, its halls glowed with soft light. The crew, once broken and gasping for breath, now stood tall, their bodies still weak, but their hearts strong again, and at the center of it all were the humans, small figures who had done the impossible. Captain Serac walked slowly through the ship, his steps heavy with memory. He passed the rooms where his crew had once whispered of death, now filled with quiet laughter. He passed the medical bay where groans had once echoed, now alive with steady breathing. Each step reminded him that this new beginning was born from strangers who owed them nothing, yet gave everything. The humans gathered in the docking bay, preparing to return to their ship. Their task was finished, but the aliens did not want them to leave. Fear trembled in their hearts again, not fear of death, but fear of losing the ones who had saved them. Rylan, the young officer, stepped forward, her eyes shining. Will you come back? She asked in a trembling voice. The human leader crouched slightly, meeting her gaze. When you call, they said simply. The words struck deep, a promise carried not by power, but by will. Serac stood before them, his voice shook with emotion. The galaxy sees you as small, as weak, but they are blind. They measure strength in weapons, in armies, in empires. But you carry strength in your hearts. His throat tightened, his eyes wet. You gave us life when no one else would. For that, you will never be forgotten. The crew bowed together, every alien lowering their head before the humans. It was not forced, not commanded. It was respect, the kind that cannot be taken, only earned. The humans looked uneasy, not proud. Their faces carried humility, as if saving lives was not something extraordinary, but simply something that had to be done. The docking bay lights blinked, signaling departure. The humans stepped back toward their small ship. The crew reached out, some trying to touch their hands one last time, afraid it was all a dream that would vanish once the airlock closed. When the human ship detached, a silence filled the carousel. The aliens stood watching through the wide window as the small vessel drifted into the stars, its lights fading into the endless dark. Yet this time, the dark did not feel cruel. It felt alive, because they knew somewhere in it, humanity existed. Serac turned to his people, his voice strong. We owe them our lives. But more than that, we owe them a truth. The galaxy must know what happened here. They must know that when all hope was lost, when we were abandoned, it was humanity who came. His words echoed, and the crew roared in agreement. That story did not stay within the carousel. It spread across the trade routes, across the hidden corners of empires, whispered from one world to another. The tale of fragile humans who reached into the void and pulled back life. Generals who once mocked them grew silent. Merchants who once ignored them paused in thought. And slaves, workers, and outcasts across the galaxy whispered a new word with hope in their voices. Humans. For the crew of the carousel, their future had changed forever. They had been drifting helpless in space, and now they carried more than survival. They carried a bond, a promise, and a truth that would echo through the stars. And so their journey began again, not as the forgotten, but as witnesses to the strength of a species too small to conquer, yet too great to ignore. Humanity had given them more than life. Humanity had given them a new beginning,